Have you ever looked up at the night sky, felt the silence of the world around you, and wondered if something out there was watching back? Chris and Taylor were just two teenagers on an ordinary summer night, lying in a quiet field with a blanket, a bottle of wine, and a sky full of stars. But in the blink of an eye, the ordinary turned into the unexplainable. One moment they were laughing under a shooting star, and the next, one of them was simply gone, vanished, without a sound, without a trace. What they experienced that night has no logic, no science, and no answers, only a chilling truth. Sometimes, the night takes what it wants. Chris had always been fascinated by the stars. At 16, he loved slipping away from the noise of his small town in Indiana to watch the night sky, where silence stretched endlessly and every star seemed like a secret. That Friday night, his best friend Taylor suggested they go stargazing in a remote field just outside town. "Come on, Chris, it's the last weekend of summer. Let's make it count," Taylor grinned, balancing her bike outside his house. Chris grabbed his backpack. Inside was a cheap telescope, a blanket, and 2 soda bottles that Taylor had secretly swapped with her older brother's wine. By the time they pedaled into the quiet field, the sun had sunk completely, and a pale moon lit the open land. The field was eerily empty, the kind of emptiness that makes your ears ring. The only sound was their tires crunching over gravel. They dropped their bikes near a crooked fence and spread the blanket on the grass. Above them, stars glittered in icy clusters. Taylor popped open one of the bottles. "To the last summer night," she said, raising it. Chris laughed, clinking his bottle against hers. For a while they lay on their backs, whispering jokes, naming constellations, daring each other to stay silent as the strange hum of the field wrapped around them. The air smelled faintly metallic, like lightning before a storm, even though the sky was clear. "Look," Taylor suddenly pointed. A streak of white tore across the sky, a shooting star, brighter than either of them had ever seen. Chris made a wish, though he didn't say it aloud. Then, feeling relaxed, he closed his eyes for what felt like a single breath. But when he opened them again, his blood froze. The blanket beside him was empty. Taylor was gone. Her bike near the fence was gone too. The bottle she had been holding lay tipped over, leaking dark liquid into the grass. "Taylor," Chris whispered, his voice trembling. He sat up, scanning the field. The silence pressed hard against his ears. No sound of footsteps, no rustle of grass, nothing. He stood, heart pounding, calling her name louder now. His flashlight beam cut through the night, but all it revealed was endless grass and the eerie line of trees swaying in the distance. Panic surged through him. He sprinted to where the bikes had been, but only his remained. The other had vanished completely, as if it had never existed. Cold sweat prickled his neck. His phone buzzed in his pocket. Relief shot through him. Maybe it was Taylor. But when he pulled it out, the screen was blank. No service. Even worse, the last few messages he remembered sending earlier that evening were gone. His call log was empty, like no contact with Taylor had ever happened. The night felt wrong, unnaturally still, like the entire field was holding its breath. Chris grabbed his bike, pedaling hard toward home. The path seemed longer than before, and when he glanced behind him, he swore he saw a flicker of movement in the tall grass, a shadow shifting, too tall and too slow to be Taylor. He didn't stop until his house came into view. He burst through the door, gasping, waking his parents with wild words about Taylor disappearing. But when they asked him to explain, his story tangled in his throat. His dad frowned. "Chris, are you sure she came with you? Taylor's mom says she thought she was home tonight." Confused, Chris checked his phone again. Taylor's contact wasn't there, not even a trace. Sleep that night was impossible. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the field swallowing Taylor whole. And worse, he felt like something had followed him home, watching from the corners of his darkened room. When morning came, Chris biked nervously to Taylor's house. To his shock, she opened the door herself, pale, shaken, but alive. "You," she whispered, pointing at him. "You disappeared. I closed my eyes, and you were gone. I was alone." Chris's stomach dropped. Her words mirrored his own terror, and neither of them could explain what had happened in that field under the stars. The reunion should have been comforting, but it wasn't. Chris and Taylor stared at each other on her front porch, both pale and trembling. "You're lying," Chris said softly, though his voice shook. "You vanished. I looked everywhere." Taylor shook her head fiercely. "No, Chris. I swear, it was you. I blinked, and you were gone. Your bike too. I thought I was going crazy." Their stories overlapped in impossible ways. The same shooting star, the same blink, the same instant disappearance. Inside Taylor's house, her parents exchanged worried looks as the teens argued. But when Chris demanded to see the texts they had exchanged earlier, Taylor's face fell. Her phone was blank, no calls, no messages from him. It was as though the night had been erased. The unease grew into dread. That night, Chris dreamt of the field. Only this time, when Taylor vanished, something else appeared. A tall figure stood at the edge of the grass, faceless, its head tilting slowly toward him. He woke drenched in sweat. The following evening, Chris and Taylor returned to the field, desperate for answers. The blanket still lay in the grass where they had left it, but now it was damp, like it had rained only in that spot. The spilled wine bottle was gone. The silence was worse than before. Not even insects chirped. Taylor knelt near the ground. Chris looked pressed into the dirt where footprints too large to be theirs, bare, encircling where they had sat. Suddenly, Chris's flashlight flickered. In the distance, among the trees, a shape moved tall, wrong, like the shadow from his dream. Taylor grabbed his arm. "Do you see it too?" Before he could answer, a deep vibration pulsed through the ground. The air thickened, metallic again, and for a split second, Chris felt the world stutter, like time skipped a beat. His bike, leaning against a fence, flickered like static on a screen there one moment, gone the next, then back again. Terrified, they bolted home. For weeks, the field haunted them. Both began noticing strange lapses in their daily lives. At school, Chris would lose track of whole minutes, staring at the clock only to realize half an hour had passed. Taylor reported waking in bed with dirt on her hands and grass tangled in her hair. When they tried to confide in friends, no one believed them. Worse, some swore Taylor and Chris hadn't even hung out together all summer. The event became an unspoken secret between them. Neither could explain it, and both felt watched, as though the tall figure from the field had attached itself to them. Years later, as adults, the memory still clawed at their minds. Chris avoided stargazing altogether, unable to look at a clear night sky without nausea. Taylor confessed she sometimes dreamed of the shooting star, and in her dreams it never stopped moving. It circled the earth endlessly, waiting. They never solved the mystery. Their phones never recovered the missing logs. Their families dismissed their story as teenage imagination, but deep down, both Chris and Taylor knew the truth. Something in that field had touched them, pulled them briefly out of reality, and left its mark. And sometimes, on silent nights, Chris still hears it, the faint hum of the field, the metallic air, and the slow rustle of something tall shifting in the grass. The disappearance was never about stargazing. It was about something watching from the dark, waiting for its chance to take one of them forever.